Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again. I am here today to talk about my top 10 favorite movies of 2023. Now, this year was not a very good year for movies. In fact, when I look at my top 10 list, let's see, how many would I rewatch realistically? Like, if I had to say right now, do I want to watch this or not? Let's see. Let's see. I don't see anything so far. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4-ish, 5, 6. Maybe just 5. I don't know. So, yeah, this year was not that great. You know, there were so many projects, once again, that should have been great, but were terrible. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars wasted. Talent wasted. Time wasted. Just everything wasted. And I have a couple of honorable mentions. So, Thanksgiving, I thought was a pretty good horror movie. The only drawback I would say is that there isn't any sex or nudity, which is kind of a downer because, you know, in the original Thanksgiving trailer, I realized that they had, like, this, like, all this, like, sexual stuff, and they cut all that out of the movie, you know, for some reason, and I thought that was kind of strange, because it gave the movie more of a old school feel, since, you know, back then, they made horror movies with sex and nudity all the time, because that was, like, a normal thing that normal people did, and now it's like, we've reverted back to the 1600s, in terms of that type of stuff, and, you know, but I kind of like this movie. It was enjoyable. It had a lot of great kills. I really loved the dinner scene and wish the dinner scene had gone on longer, and I like the final girl, too. You know, a lot of the times I really do not like the final girl. I just find her to be really boring and lame, and I just feel like she's the final girl because she has to be. But in this movie, I actually liked her, even though she did look constipated the whole movie. And also, Scream 6, Safi is like, you know, I guess this, or she's kind of right, because this movie, it does get flawed the more and more you think about it. But I enjoyed it. It was like a Scream ride, like a theme park ride, like, you know, Martin Scorsese says, Marvel's like a theme park ride. I felt like Scream 6 was like that, because there were lots of ups and downs, and I really had fun in the first 2 acts of the movie, like, regardless of all the problems, that, like, there are really a ton of problems. I just didn't get that negative feeling that I got when I watched Scream 5, you know, where I was really, really not liking that because they killed off Dewey, and I hated how, like, they made it like Halloween 2018. But Scream 6, I enjoyed it a lot more. I really like the main character, how she's so badass. She dresses up like Ghostface, and it makes her really sexy too. And, you know, her sister's sexy as well. And honestly, like, looking at them for 2 hours, like, that just totally makes the movie 1,000 times better. Plus, I like the opening, but I'll still say that there's a lot of problems. The last act is just a horrible mess. In fact, if I watch it again, I'll probably not even watch the final act, even though you get to see Samantha dress up as Ghostface. Like, the final act is just so bad. But at least the ending is good. I like the ending. I thought that the ending was like a fitting end for the series. Very, very fitting and good. And yeah, I enjoyed it still. I'm not going to trash it and put it in the worst movies because I genuinely enjoyed it. And so there's that. And also, John Wick Chapter 4. This was one where it's another movie where I do admit there's a lot of flaws. Like I did not like the first act, which was like an hour because it was a 3-hour movie. And I was sick while I was watching it, so it did kind of affect my enjoyment and made me enjoy it a lot more because I was doing so terribly. I had to distract myself in any way I could because I had this horrible infection and I was trying to make it through the weekend, and it was basically like what John Wick had to go through in the movie, where he had to survive the night in order to make it to the showdown. Like, that's literally what I had to go through while I was watching the movie because I couldn't make an appointment until the next day or a couple of days later. So I had to like survive, and it was a nightmare. And watching this movie was like one of the few good things of that little time period. And yeah, I really love the action, especially like as it got on towards the end. I really loved like the Warriors kind of rip off that they do, because it felt like this movie is what the third one should have been. Like, the third one felt like what this movie should have been, probably. Because, like, the third one was when he was being hunted down by everyone and their brother and their mother's mothers. Well, in the fourth one, that's really the feeling that you get more so. Like, in the fourth one, you really feel like he is in danger constantly, especially the final act, where it's, like, full-on, like, everyone in the whole city is trying to kill him. And that's exactly what I wanted. And so I'm glad that I finally got what I wanted. I also love the final showdown between him and Pennywise. I thought that was awesome. But I will say that I was really disappointed that we didn't get more Lawrence Fishburne, because the way they made it look, it was like he was going to be a main character. And I would also say that it was weird how they got rid of that short-haired girl. The annoying one from part 3, who was like one of the people who went around like executing all the different people. I don't know, like what you call it. I can't remember. But like, I thought she was going to be another major player in this movie, and she wasn't even in the movie. And I was really like disappointed by that, because I really wanted to see her get what she deserved, like Pennywise did. That guy was really evil too. So yeah, but in general, I really like this movie still. I really enjoyed the second and third act. So my number 10 is Godzilla -1. This is a movie where, look, I know I'm going to sound a bit cringy in criticizing this movie, because, look, when I watch a Godzilla movie, I don't care about the people. The people are the most least interesting part, or that's actually, they're not the most least interesting, they are the least interesting part of the movie. Like, that's why I kind of liked Godzilla vs. Kong, because even though it still had a ton of problems, I liked the amount of screen time that Godzilla got, and I liked the amount of, like, you got a lot of Godzilla and less human stuff. They listened to the audience for once. But in this movie, it's more of like a character study about this kamikaze pilot, and I did really like his character, and I felt for his character. There were a lot of emotional parts in the movie, and I really wanted to enjoy it more. It's just that I wish that Godzilla was in more of the movie. Because, like, when he was in the movie, it was like a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. Like, They played the classic music. Godzilla was ruthless, and I just wanted to see more of that because it was like teasing me. Like I felt like you get a lot of Godzilla in the trailer for sure and all the promotional stuff, but then when you get to the movie, it's like 80% of it is just people. And still, it's good. It's really good. And I would definitely watch it again if I was in the mood. But that's why I'm not putting it like at number one. Because if Godzilla was in this movie more, I would have put this at number one easily. Like, it was very emotional. It was very awesome and horrifying at some points. And another thing, probably, like, I kind of want to put it at number one. Because the thing is that the people who made this movie, they only spent $10 million. And I just think that's so awesome and cool that, like, for $10 million, they managed to make a movie as good as this. Because, like, you think about Hollywood. What does Hollywood spend on? Like, remember that shitty new Godzilla that they're making? Like, what was that called? The Godzilla X Kong. I want to look up the new Empire. I want to look up the budget for that movie. Because it was so funny, like, after the Godzilla -1 came out, they released the trailer for the new Godzilla X Kong, and it's like, it looks terrible. It just looks like the opposite of Godzilla -1 and what that movie was. Well, guess how much this new one costs, even though it looks terrible? It costs over $200 million. So isn't that telling? I mean, I really think, number one, if Hollywood wants to succeed, get more directors like the guy who did Godzilla -1. Because even though I wasn't the hugest fan of this one, I want to see more movies made by filmmakers like him, who actually have a story to tell and actually, know what they're doing. Because for $10 million, like, to think of, like, how many great movies like this could have been made if they split that budget up of Godzilla X Kong into 15 parts. Give it to 15 different people for 15 different stories. You could have had 15 great movies, but instead you made one bad movie that's probably going to be bad. It might be good because they are cutting out a lot of the human stuff in the movie, but it might also be junk because the trailer looked pretty bad and pretty cheap and pathetic. And I would say if Hollywood wants to succeed, number one, get rid of Sex Police, because they're a waste of money and a waste of life. And then also cut down the budgets and make it so that you have movies that are made for $10 million, $20 million, $30 million. Don't stop this thing of, like, where movies, big movies, they have to cost hundreds of millions of dollars because they really don't need to. Okay? And so number 9 is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This movie was surprisingly good. Okay, like, when I first saw the marketing of this movie, and when everyone did, I thought, I can't wait to roast the shit out of this movie, because it looks so cheap, and it looks so, like, poor. But then when I actually watched the movie, I was like, wow, this is really fun. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy meets, like, a medieval movie. There's no agendas at all, for the most part. I mean, there were a couple of points where I felt like maybe there were a little, but not really at all. Like, I really loved this movie. It was so much fun. It was funny. It was action-packed at certain points. Like, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I would love to see a sequel. My number 8 is Air. Air is a movie that I never reviewed, and honestly, it wouldn't have made for a good review. Like, it would have been like 5 minutes, and I would have said, it was a pretty good movie. Bye. Because this movie, this is one of those movies where I almost want to put it, like, lower on the list, because it's just one of those movies where it's so simplistic and it's so, like, straightforward that it's almost, like, too simplistic. Because it's all about Matt Damon, and he's trying to come up with a new line of Nike shoes that a basketball player will sponsor and wear them while he plays on the court. And it was very interesting. It was very entertaining. But it's one of those movies where I wonder, will I ever watch it again? And also, like, was it really great? Because it didn't feel like a movie that is going to win a lot of awards. It just feels like one of those movies where you watch it and you're done with it. But I still enjoyed it. You know, I really like seeing Jason Bateman. I think he's kind of an underrated actor, and his character was great. And, you know, but Matt Damon, he just plays like the same character in everything he does. Like, I genuinely could not tell the difference between the character that he plays in this movie and the character that he plays in Ford v Ferrari. Like, he's just always like, I'm the enthusiastic sales guy who's going to convince you to do anything that I want you to do. So, please do our shoes because I'll make your dreams come true. You know, just like in the Ford v Ferrari movie where he's like, please, Christian Bale, please be my partner so we can do car stuff and also succeed in this victory. Like, he's just always the same character now, but he's really good. Like, he's a solid actor. He's a solid actor that you enjoy watching. And so this movie, it is enjoyable. I will give it that. Number 7 is Joyride. Now, and I'm not saying this to be like, I don't know, racist, whatever, but I want to see more movies like this, like more Asian movies or more like foreign movies, because like this movie was so unique and authentic and fun and funny, and the editing was very funny, the way that they really used the editing to their advantage. And I just feel like for this year, like wasn't really able to watch like many foreign movies. Like, maybe I just didn't hear about them. Maybe that there were some that were worth checking out, but I really wish that there were more, because like I want to see like more unique movies like this, where it's all about this road trip in China between these friends, and they're all a bunch of funny characters, and it was a thoroughly enjoyable movie. It was my second to last movie of the year, and I could watch it again. It was very funny. And the main character, too, was pretty hot as well. Like, I probably should have put her on the F, Marry, Kill tournament. In fact, that is a glaring error that I didn't put her on there. That's really sad, because she was really, she really stuck out. But yeah, I really liked the movie. I would highly recommend Joyride. I was recommended it like a long time ago, like in August, by a friend from high school, and you know, he's Asian as well, and so he recommended it, and I was like, yeah, I might get around to it, and I'm glad that I did get around to it, because it's so much better than like the majority of crap that I saw this year. Number 6 is Saw X. This is a movie where it was surprisingly good. I mean, it's the 10th movie in the Saw franchise, and for it to be this high is just amazing. And I think, too, that a lot of people are going to be dishonest with their rankings, and they're not going to put Saw X on their lists, because they feel like, you don't put that type of movie on your top 10 list. And I feel like you're really being dishonest to how good the movie was. Because just because it's a horror movie means that you're not going to put it there, but then you'll put something like, I don't know, like, let's see, what do I think? Actually, I don't know. Wonka, they'll put Wonka on it for sure. Wonka's a kid's movie. You put Wonka on your list, but you won't put a movie like Saw X because it's a horror movie. People really discriminate against horror movies, which is pretty telling. It's like horror movies are the best movies out there, honestly. And Saw X, you really get the emotion. Because this is also, it starts out like a character study of John Kramer. And you really, really get invested into his story. And then halfway through, it turns into a regular Saw movie. And you're really, really rooting for him to kill these fucking people. Except for one of them, of course. And the villain in this movie, too, she's basically just as evil as him. Or maybe even more evil. And I just feel like this movie is exactly what horror movie sequels should be like. Like, if Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, if those movies did what this movie did, I would have given all of them A+. But the fact is that, like, this movie is really like a unicorn. Because, like, horror movie sequels, they're terrible now. They really ruined them a lot. And thankfully, this is one of the better ones. Like, I could actually put it higher, too. Because they gave us a lot of good fan service that didn't just feel like fan service for the sake of fan service. And they told a great story 10 movies into the series. I mean, they really deserve, like, applause for this movie. Like, and when I do my awards ceremony too, the Jones Awards, it will be reflected in that rewards ceremony. Number 5 is Blackberry. This was another solid movie. I feel like this is a sleeper movie too, because no one even talks about this movie. I mean, like, there's a couple of people who do, and they all say it's really, really good. Go watch that movie. But for some reason, like, it never caught on. And, like, I don't hear anyone talking about it now at all. Like, I see these best of the year lists, and, like, nobody even mentions it. They treat it like it doesn't exist. And I think it's terrible that they do that, because this is an awesome movie. What I really loved about the movie was it showed the dynamic between these people of how multiple people were the reason why BlackBerry was successful, not just one person. In a lot of these movies, like, let's say, The Founder, it really feels like it's just that one guy. And the reason why this company is so great is because of that one guy. And BlackBerry shows that, like, you have to have all these different people to make this business successful. And also, it makes me sad for Blackberries, because I wish that I could have a Blackberry. Like, if Blackberries were popular and they never went away, I would honestly buy a Blackberry over an iPhone, because I would want to. They look a lot cooler, and I like the mouse too. Like, the mouse is a really cool feature that the iPhone is missing. And just the name itself, too, BlackBerry. And this is also one of the movies that I would watch again for sure. Like, when Safi was watching it, I was like, I kind of want to watch it now, because it's so good and funny and exciting and interesting. Number 4 is Gran Turismo. This is another movie that it feels like people just forgot about this movie. Like, they gave it great reviews when it came out, and then all of a sudden at the end of the year, what's that movie? And let's be honest, this movie is one of the best movies of the year easily. I mean, it's an extremely motivational story where, like, no matter what field you're in, you'll be motivated and inspired based off of this movie. It's got solid acting. The racing scenes are pretty great. They're not as good as Ford v Ferrari. And it's a solid story. I could watch it again as well. It's a great movie. Number 3 is Killers of the Flower Moon. This movie was... I'm kind of biased towards it because, number 1, I love staring at the main actress for 3.5 hours. I mean, number 1, she gave a great performance. And number 2, she is great to look at for 3.5 hours, honestly. And this movie is also... It really marked a turning point for me because I completely overcame my anxiety to see this movie. And I said, there's no way I'm not seeing this movie in the theater. And I went to the theater and I got to see this movie in an empty theater with no one around. And so I was completely vulnerable. Whatever could have happened in 3.5 hours. And instead I got the most amazing experience ever. And then I saw it 2 more times. It's the only movie I've ever seen 3 times in a theater because it was so entertaining and it was so enjoyable each time. I had like a different experience, like every time had its own little story. And it's a movie where I would probably watch it again in the future, but now I'm just kind of over it because I'm over 2023. I'm ready for 2024. And yeah, it's a very solid movie, but there are a lot of flaws with it. And the more and more I think about it, the more and more flaws stick out. But it's a very unique movie. And I think that it's cool that Martin Scorsese made this movie, because I don't think that it could have gotten made unless he pushed for it. But once again, there are a lot of flaws. But the best compliment I can give the movie is that it does not feel like 3.5 hours at all to me. It feels like shorter than a lot of other movies I saw this year. Like John Wick 4 feels longer than this movie. Oppenheimer feels longer. Napoleon feels longer. Finest Kind feels longer. Rebel Moon feels longer. Haunted Mansion feels longer. All these, The Exorcist feels longer. All these movies feel longer. Like somehow, like Killers of the Flower Moon, even though it was 3.5 hours, it was very well edited to where it was the pacing was really good. The only drawback, the biggest drawback, I guess, not the only one, the biggest drawback is the music. The music in this movie is terrible. It doesn't fit the movie at all. It completely undercuts the emotions of what goes on in the scenes. Like, there's a part in the movie where there's a house explosion and a man, a woman, and their child are killed, and it's horrifying because you know that it's coming up and that it's going to happen, and then it happens. And the music that they play, they hardly play anything. And it's just like Another Day at the Park or something. Like, instead of playing like music that really fits the story and what's going on, they just play this like casual, old-timey music. And it was stupid that they did that. Just stupid. And it was the same guy who did The Irishman's music. And The Irishman had the same type of problems that I complained about with the music. Except The Irishman was a little bit better because it did have a couple of songs that were really good in it and fit the movie. Number 2 is Mr. Monk's Last Case, a Monk movie. Now, this one is surprising for me because I really hated the final season of Monk for the most part. And this movie, it just felt like such a welcoming return to the Monk world. Of like, this show was very unique, and it was very comforting, even though the mysteries were very dark and evil. The people were really evil who were killing people. All the villains were really evil. It was a very comforting show, and for this movie to bring back that same type of feeling was a very, very welcoming surprise. And I thought this movie was just going to be a wedding movie because that's the way they made it sound. But then all that is completely subverted, and instead it's like this dark movie where, Monk is thinking about suicide, and it gets really, really emotional at the end. Even though the mystery is very simplistic, this is probably the most emotional that I felt watching like a Monk-related thing, other than I think earlier episodes of the show. So the fact that they were able to capture that was really good, and just I really miss Monk because his show is so perfect. I could watch it forever because it's so good. It's so much better than let's say the X-Files. Honestly, so this movie was really good. Definitely the second best movie of the year. Simply, it's a little biased too, because I admit, if I wasn't a Monk fan, I probably would have put it at number 12, maybe. Something like that, but yeah. Number one. Number one is Finest Kind. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding with that. Number one is Oppenheimer. Because this is a movie that is so overrated that I heard for months and months how good this movie was. I wasn't able to see it because I was so sick, which was terrible because I really wanted to see it in theaters and I was too sick to see it in theaters. But I heard for months and months and months it's the greatest thing I've ever. And then I finally saw it, and somehow, even after all that hype, this movie was still better than I expected. That's how good it was. Even though you don't get to see the bomb's effect on, Japan, even though that is a glaring error, if you know that beforehand, you will really love the movie. Even though the first act is really, really crap and it jumps around too much and it's not a very good first act at all. The second and third act are so good. You're just glued to the screen. The performance of Cillian Murphy was perfection. He was a great protagonist because he was flawed, and at the same time you rooted for him. It was a very intense, emotional, impactful movie. But the biggest reason of why I put it at number one is because of the music. The music in this movie does what music did in all of Hitchcock's movies, where the music was thoroughly intertwined with the story. Of there was music for almost every single moment of this entire 3-hour movie. And so it made it feel like it was not 3 hours at some points because the music was so good that it completely carried the movie. I gotta be honest, if the movie didn't have music this good, I would have it at number 7 or 8. And I would put Godzilla -1 at number 1. because like the music in this movie is just, it's phenomenal. It's like next level good, and it enhances every single scene of the whole film. And the ending of the movie is actually the best part. Like after like the second act and you think that the movie's done, it goes on, and then you get to the end, and the ending is like the best part because it's just like the culmination of everything, even though it's like been 3 fucking hours. So yeah, Oppenheimer was easily the best movie of 2023. Not even really a contest because of the music. But I would also recommend the 9 other movies that I discussed in this. So anyways, please like this video, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest videos like this. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.